Today we have a special lecture by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada on the occasion of his Diksha Divas Day.
Following is a lecture delivered by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Recorded on the 10th of December 1976 at Hyderabad.
Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsha.
By spiritual master, practically I met him in 1922, and this poetry was written in 1936. That means 14 years before writing this poetry, I met my Guru Maharaj in 1922. At that time, I was quite a young man, 25 years old only, and I was posted in a very responsible position as the office manager of Dr. Bose's laboratory, and I was fond of, in those days, of Gandhi's movement. In 1922, I joined Gandhi's movement and I gave up my education and career because one of the Gandhi's program was to boycott the university. That's a very long story, and many students gave up their education and career and joined the Gandhi's movement, and I was one of them. So, Dr. Bose, Kartik Chandra Bose, is a very important man at that time. He was managing director of Bengal Chemical Company. Now there is a street in the central Calcutta, Dr. Kartik Bose Street. So he was a very important man, and he was our family physician and my father's very intimate friend. So, when I gave up my education and I was joining Gandhi's movement, at that time, Dr. Kartik Chandra Bose asked me to join him. So, with the permission of my father, I joined. So I was fond of, at that time, this Gandhi non-cooperation movement. And then, when I joined Dr. Bose's laboratory, first I was dressed in khabbar. The Dr. Bose liked that dress, khabbar dress. He told me one day that out of your whole Gandhi's movement, I like this khabbar only. Dr. Bose said. And why? Because this will give impetus to industry. This hand spinning will gradually give impetus to India. Actually, that happened. He was himself an industrialist. Actually, in India, the chemical industry was given birth by Dr. Kartik Chandra. He was a very important man. he started with Bengal chemical. So 1922, I met my Guru Maharaj through the exigency of my intimate friend, Mr. Narendranath Malli. And I would not go. He told me information, there is a nice sadhu, let us go and see. I did not like very much these sadhus in those days, national spirit. So I said, I have seen many sadhus. They come at my father's care. I was not very much pleased with their behavior. So he dragged me forcibly. No, I have heard this person is very exalted. So I went, and his first opening version was that you are educated young man, why don't you preach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's gospel in the Western country? I did not know. So this was his blessing in the first meeting. I did not know, but because we belong to a Vaishnava family, we were very much worshippers of Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda, our family deity. So I was very much pleased that here is a personality who is going to preach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's gospel. I was very much pleased. So anyway, from 1922 to 1933, practically I was not initiated, but I got the impression of preaching Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cult. That I was thinking. And that was the initiation by my Guru Maharaj. Then officially I was initiated in 1933 because in 1923 I left Calcutta. I started my business at Allahabad. So I was always thinking of my Guru Maharaj that I met a very nice sadhu. And although I was doing business, I never forgot it. Then in 1928, these Gauri Math people came to Allahabad during Kumbh Mela. As the Kumbh Mela is going to be held this year, a similar big Kumbh Mela was held in 1928. In those days, they came to open their branch in Allahabad, and somebody recommended that you go to, at that time I was running on my big pharmacy. I was a very well-known man in Allahabad as the proprietor of the pharmacy. So somebody recommended them that you go to our Vaibhav. He is a very religious man. He will help you. So when they entered my shop, I was very much pleased that this man I met in 1922, and now they have come in this way. We become reconnected. And in 1933, I was officially initiated. And my only qualification was when I was introduced to my Guru Maharaj for initiation, Guru Maharaj immediately said, yes, I can initiate this boy. He is very nice. He hears me. very patiently. He does not go away. So, that was my qualification. The high standard of philosophy which was speaking at that time, practically I could not follow what he was speaking. But still, I like to hear. That was my hobby. Whenever I was asking when Guru Maharaj will speak, so he took it very seriously. Then in 1936, that's a long history.
Hare Krishna. So today we are observing Srila Prabhupada Diksha Divas. Today was the day in the year 1933 that Srila Prabhupada formally received initiation from his spiritual master, His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So we have here some collection of recollections by Srila Prabhupada of how he finally took initiation by his spiritual master, some lecture excerpts, and also some excerpts from different devotees who heard directly from Srila Prabhupada about the events that finally led to his initiation. So I will read them and we shall hear. So the first one, this is an excerpt from a lecture given by Srila Prabhupada on the occasion of the disappearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So he gave this lecture in 1973, December 13th at Los Angeles. Srila Prabhupada. So when I met Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, it's a long story how I met him. One of my friends, he dragged me. I was at that time a nationalist and manager in a big chemical factory. My age was about 24 years. So one of my friends, he asked me that there is a nice sadhu, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He has come to Calcutta. So let us go and see. So I was reluctant. I thought, just like so, there are so many sadhus. So I was not very much. But I had very bad experience. Because I had very bad experience, not very good experience with all these sadhus. So I thought, oh, these kinds of sadhus, there are so many. You will be glad to know that even in my young age or early age, it was by Krishna's grace, even amongst my young friends, I was considered the leader. In my school days, in my college days, in my private friendship, some way or other I became their leader. And one astrologer, he read my hand and he said in Hindi, Hukum chalega. Hukum chalega means your hands will speak, your hand speaks that your order will be executed. Devotees, Jai. Prabhupada. So anyway, it was Krishna's grace. I would not go to meet that sadhu. But their point of view was that unless I certify that sadhu, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he will not be accepted by my friends. Therefore, he dragged me. So I went to see Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur on that day. On the first meeting, just we offered our obeisances. It is the practice. So immediately he began his talking that you're all educated young men. Why don't you take up Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cult and preach all over the English-knowing public? Why don't you take up this matter. So I argued with him in so many ways. At that time, I was nationalist. So I told, who will accept your message? We are a dependent nation. Nobody will care. In this way, in my own way, in these younger days, I started arguing. But we belong to the Vaishnava family. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda, Radha Govinda, that is our worshipable deity. So I was very glad that Radha Krishna cult, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cult, this sadhu is trying to preach. This is very nice. I felt like that. So at that time, we had some talks with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and of course, I was defeated by his arguments, by my arguments. And then, when we came out, we were offered prasadam, very nice treatment, the Gaudiya Math. And when I came out on the street, my friend asked me, so what is your opinion of the sadhu? Then I said, here is the right person who has taken up Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message, and now this will be distributed. Devotees, Jai. Prabhupada. So I was at that time a fool, but I opined like this, and I accepted him as my spiritual master immediately. Not officially, but in my heart. That was in 1922. So in the very first meeting, Srila Prabhupada is saying that I accepted Bhaktisiddhanta as my spiritual master, not officially, but in my heart. Abhay's second meeting with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in Vrindavan. This is an excerpt from volume 1 of Srila Prabhupada's Leelamrita by Satswarup Goswami. In November of 1932, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati led a group of hundreds of disciples and pilgrims on a month-long parikrama, or circumambulation of the sacred places of Vrindavan. Vrindavan residents and visitors performed parikrama by following the old dry bed of the Yamuna river and circumambulating the Vrindavan area, stopping at the places where Krishna performed his pastimes when he roamed in Vrindavan 5,000 years ago. Abhay had wanted to attend Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's parikrama, but couldn't because of his work. Nevertheless, on the 20th day of the pilgrimage, Abhay travelled from Allahabad, intent on seeing Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati again and hoping to join the parikrama party at Kosi, just outside Vrindavan, at least for a day. When Abhay had heard from the members of Allahabad Gaudiya Math about the parikrama, he had been fully occupied with his local Prayag pharmacy business and travelling to secure new accounts. But he had calculated how he could join at least for a day or two, and he had fixed his mind on again obtaining the darshan of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Srila Prabhupada. I was not initiated at that time of parikrama, but I had very good admiration for these Gaudiya Math people. They were very kind to me, so I thought, what are these people doing in this parikrama? Let me go, let me see. So I met them at Kosi, near Vrindavan. So I met them at Kosi, Prabhupada is saying, and Keshav Maharaj was informing that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is going to Mathura tomorrow morning and he will speak Hari Katha this evening. Anyone who wants to go may go, and those who wish to remain to hear him may remain. Or otherwise, they may go to see Seshashai Vishnu at Mathura. So at that time, I think only 10 or 12 men remained. Sridhar Maharaj was one of them, and I thought it wise. What can I see at the Seshashai? Let me hear what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati will speak. Let me hear. When Abhay arrived, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was already speaking. He sat with his back erect, a shawl around his shoulders, not speaking like a professional lecturer giving a scheduled performance, but addressing a small gathering in his room. At last, Abhay was in his presence again. Abhay marveled to see and hear him. This unique soul possessed of Krishna Katha, speaking uninterruptedly about Krishna in his deep, low voice, in ecstasy and deep knowledge. Abhay sat and heard with rapt attention. An hour went by, 2 hours. The already small gathering in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's room gradually thinned. A few sannyasis left, excusing themselves to tend to duties connected with the parikrama camp. Only a few intimate leaders remained. Abhay was the only outsider. Of course, he was a devotee, not an outsider, but in the sense that he was not a sannyasi, was not handling many duties, was not even initiated, and was not traveling with the parikrama, but had joined only for a day. In that sense, Abhay, he was an outsider. The philosophy Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was speaking, however, was democratically open to whoever would give an ardent hearing. And that Abhay was doing. He was listening with wonder. Sometimes he would not even understand something, but he would go on listening intently, submissively, his intelligence drinking in the words. He felt Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati revealing to him the direct vision of the spiritual world. Just as a person reveals something by opening a door or pushing aside a curtain, Bhaktisiddhanta was revealing the reality, and this reality was loving service to the lotus feet of Radha Krishna, the supremely worshipable personality of Godhead. How masterfully Bhaktisiddhanta spoke, and with utter conviction and boldness. It was with such awe that Abhay listened with fastened attention. Of course, all Vaishnavas accepted Krishna as their worshipable Lord, but how conclusively and with what sound logic was the faith of the Vaishnavas established by this great teacher? After several hours, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati stopped speaking. Abhay felt prepared to go on listening without cessation, and yet he had no puzzling doubts or queries to place forward. He wanted only to hear more. As Srila Bhaktisiddhanta made his exit, Abhay bowed, offering his obeisances, and then left the intimate circle of sannyasis in the row of tents and went to the outer circle of tents, his mind surcharged with the words of his spiritual master. Continuing with the excerpt from Lilamrita, Volume 1 by Satsarup Maharaj, Satsarup Das. Abhay had only recently returned from Vrindavan, the previous incident where he heard Bhaktisiddhanta speaking at Kosi. So Abhay had just returned from Vrindavan to work at Prayag, to his work at Prayag pharmacy when the devotees at the Allahabad Gaudiya Mutt informed him of a good news. They had secured lands and funds for constructing a building. The Sri Rupa Gaudiya Mutt and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta would be coming on November 21st to preside over the ceremony for laying of the cornerstone. Sir William Malcolm Haley, Governor of the United Provinces, would be the respected guest and in a grand ceremony would lay the foundation stone in the presence of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. When Abhay learned that there would also be an initiation ceremony, he asked if he could be initiated. Atulananda, the Gaudiya Mutt's president, assured Abhay that he would introduce him to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. At home, Abhay discussed his initiation plans with his wife. She had no objection, but she did not want to take initiation herself. They were already worshipping the deity at home and offering their food to the deity. They believed in God and were living peacefully. But for Abhay, that was not enough. Although he would not force his wife, he knew that he must be initiated by a pure devotee. Avoiding sinful life, living piously, these things were necessary and good, but in themselves they did not constitute spiritual life and could not satisfy the yearning of the soul. Life's ultimate goal and the absolute necessity of the self was love of Krishna. That love of Krishna his father had already inculcated within him, and now he had to take the next steps. His father would have been pleased to see him do it. And by taking initiation from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he would be linked with Krishna. Bhakti Siddhanta, son of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur and disciple of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, was the guru in the 12th disciplic generation from Lord Chaitanya. He was the foremost Vedic scholar of the age, the expert Vaishnava who could guide one back to Godhead. He was empowered by his predecessors to work for the highest welfare by giving everyone Krishna consciousness, the remedy for all sufferings. Abhay felt that he had already accepted Srila Bhakti Siddhanta as his spiritual master, and that from the very first meeting he had already received his orders. Now, if Bhakti Siddhanta would accept him as his disciple, this relationship would be confirmed. He was coming so soon after Abhay had seen and heard him in Vrindavan. Bhakti Siddhanta was coming so soon after Abhay had seen him and heard him in Vrindavan. That was how Krishna acted, through his representative. It was as if his spiritual master is coming to where Abhay had his family and business and was coming to draw him further into spiritual life. Without Abhay's having attempted to bring it about, his relationship with Srila Bhakti Siddhanta was deepening. Now, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta was coming to him as if by a higher arrangement. On the day of the ceremony, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati met with his disciples at the Allahabad Gaudiya Mutt on South Malacca Street. While he was speaking Hari Katha and taking questions, Atulananda Brahmachari took the opportunity to present several devotees. Abhay, amongst them, as a candidate for initiation, was also presented. The Allahabad devotees were proud of Mr. De, Abhay Charan De, who regularly attended the matha in the evening and led bhajans, listened to the teachings and spoke them himself, and often brought respectable guests. He had contributed money and had induced his business colleagues also to do so. With folded palms, Abhay looked up humbly at his spiritual master. He and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta were now face to face, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta recognized him and was visibly pleased to see him. He already knew him. Yes, he said, exchanging looks with Abhay. He likes to hear. He does not go away. I have marked him. I will accept him as my disciple. As the moment and the words became impressed into his being, Abhay was in ecstasy. Atulananda was pleased, surprised that his Gurudev was already in approval of Mr. De. Other disciples in the room were also pleased to witness Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's immediate acceptance of Mr. De as a good listener. Some of them wondered when or where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had arrived at such an estimation of the young pharmacist. At the initiation, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was seated on a Vyasasana, and the room was filled with guests and members of the Gaudiya Math. Those to be initiated sat around a small mound of earth, where one of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's sannyasis prepared a fire and offered grains and fruits into the flames, while everyone chanted mantras for purification. Abhay's sister and brother were present, but not his wife. Abhay basked in the presence of his Gurudeva. Yes, he likes to hear the words of his spiritual master, and his glance of recognition had remained with Abhay. Abhay would continue pleasing his spiritual master by hearing well. Then, he thought, I'll be able to speak well. The Vedic literature described 9 processes of devotional service, the first of which was Shravanam, hearing about Krishna. Then came Kirtanam, chanting about and glorifying Him. By sitting patiently and hearing at Kosi, he had pleased Krishna's representative. And when Krishna's representative was pleased, Krishna was pleased. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had not praised him for donating money to the matha and hadn't advised him to forsake his family and business and travel with him, nor had he advised Abhay to perform great austerities like the yogis who mortify their bodies with fasts and difficult vows. But he likes to hear. He had said, I have marked him. Abhay thought about it and again listened carefully as his spiritual master conducted the initiation. Finally, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta called for Abhay to come forward and receive the Harinam initiation by accepting his beads. After offering prostrated obeisances, Abhay extended his right hand and accepted the strand of japa beads from the hands of his spiritual master. At the same time, he also received the sacred Brahmanical thread signifying second initiation. Usually, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave the first initiation, Harinam, and only after some time, when he was satisfied with the progress of the disciple, would he give the second initiation. But he offered Abhay both initiations at the same time. Now, Abhay was a full-fledged disciple, a Brahmana, who could perform sacrifices, such as this fire sacrifice for initiation. He could worship the deity in the temple and would be expected to discourse widely. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta added Aravinda, lotus, to his name, and now Abhay was Abhay Charana Aravinda. Srila Prabhupada ki. After Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati left Allahabad for Calcutta, Abhay keenly felt the responsibility of working on behalf of his spiritual master. At the initiation, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had instructed Abhay to study Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which outlined the loving exchanges between Krishna and his devotees, and explained how a devotee can advance in his spiritual life. Bhaktisiddhanta Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu was a law book for devotional service, and Abhay would study it carefully. He was glad to increase his visits to the Allahabad center and to bring new people. Even at his first meeting with his spiritual master, he had received the instruction to preach the mission of Lord Chaitanya, and now he began steadily and carefully considering how to do it. Preaching was a responsibility at least as binding as that of home and business. Preaching was a responsibility at least as binding as that of home and business. Even in his home, he wanted to engage as far as possible in preaching. So, Srila Prabhupada. So anyway, this is from a letter that Srila Prabhupada writes to Hanuman Prasad Poddar. Prabhupada is again recollecting. So anyway, from 1922, when he first met his spiritual master, to 1933, when he formally received initiation. So during that period, he was not initiated formally. So Prabhupada writes, so anyway, between 1922 to 1933, practically I was not initiated, but I got the impression of preaching Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cult that I was thinking. And that was the initiation by my Guru Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada ki. So this is how Srila Prabhupada received initiation in 1933 from His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And here it is said, Bhaktisiddhanta gave him both the first and second initiation. He was very pleased with him because one thing that he noted in Abhay was he liked to hear. He hears attentively. He does not go away. I'll just read one last. This was the poem that Abhay, we know this poem, although we know about it, but we have never read it any time. So I'll just read this poem. Abhay wrote a poem to glorify Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And this poem, Abhay read it when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was present. This happened in Puri in the year 1935. Bhaktisiddhanta passed away in about 1936. So 1 year before he passed away, Abhay wrote this poem, and Bhaktisiddhanta was very happy with this poem that Srila Prabhupada wrote to glorify him. Adore, adore ye all the happy day, blessed than heaven, sweeter than May. When he appeared at Puri, the holy place, my Lord and Master, His divine grace. O my Master, the evangelic angel, give us thy light, light up thy candle. Struggle for existence, a human race, the only hope, His divine grace. Misled we are, all going astray. Save us, Lord, our fervent pray. Wonder thy ways to turn our face, adore thy feet, your divine grace. Forgotten Krishna, we fallen souls, paying most heavy the illusion's toll. Darkness around, all untrace, the only hope, His divine grace. Message of service thou hast brought, a healthful life as Chaitanya wrought. Unknown to all, it's full of grace, that's your gift, your divine grace. Absolute is sentient, thou hast proved, impersonal calamity thou hast moved. This gives us a life, anew and fresh. Worship thy feet, your divine grace. Had you not come, who had told the message of Krishna, forceful and bold? That's your right, you have the mace. Save me a fallen, your divine grace. The line of service, as drawn by you, is pleasing and healthy, like the morning dew. The oldest of all, but in new dress, miracle done, your divine grace. So this was the speech that Abhay had composed and read it out to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and it was very pleasing to Bhaktisiddhanta, and this was published in that times, the Harmonist, and Bhaktisiddhanta showed it to all his disciples that how Abhay, who was a very young disciple, had so nicely understood the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. So with this, we will end here. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Prabhupada Diksha Divas ki, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande.